By now, many have delved deep into Square Enix's Final Fantasy VII Remake, basking in the nostalgia while discovering everything that's new. There are plenty of things to like and dislike, especially with how divisive some of the changes have been. So let's take a closer look, starting with... the visuals. It's one thing for a game to look this good, and make no mistake, despite some rough textures, Final Fantasy VII Remake looks really, really good. The character animations, the skyboxes, the various effects during battles, the summons, it's a smorgasbord of beautiful visual touches. However, the art direction is even more amazing. Whether it's the design of the characters or just how faithfully translated the world feels from its PS1 days to the current generation, and that's an artistic and technical accomplishment worth celebrating. Midgar has never looked better. Cloud and friends have never looked better. It's just a gorgeous game in every sense. The main cast. The development team at Square Enix deserves all the praise in the world for updating the look of its characters, while still adding contemporary new features and animating them so perfectly. However, the actual character of each individual has been expertly captured as well. Cloud's aloof attitude and mannerisms, Barrett's over-the-top but righteous crusade, Tifa's down-to-earth kindness and tough demeanor, Sephiroth's ominous creeping. Every characteristic feels like it fits. Dislike. Some voice acting. As much praise as one can give for the characters, some of the voice acting feels off. Some of it is intentionally cheesy and works, other times it doesn't. You could blame the writing or how the voice actors were directed, but a lot of the delivery comes across as over the top, landing awkwardly and feeling out of place. Barrett's extended debate with the Shinra faithful on the train is but one example. Avalanche expanded. In the original, Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge were side characters in the truest sense of the word, but fans still felt attached to them, so it's great to see each of them expanded on so significantly. Jessie could very well be another party member, even with her overly flirtatious antics. Biggs is one of the chillest guys around, and Wedge has a good heart despite being the butt of most jokes. Any quest involving them feels like hanging out, and it's great. Classic moments and updated scenes. Perhaps one of the coolest things in the remake is how it deftly captures the classic moments but also updates sequences in several cool ways. Take the first Mako reactor mission, which sees Cloud running through Shinra soldiers as the rest of Avalanche venture inside. It all feels similar to the original, but there are more interactions with Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, a more humorous take on the elevator scene with Barrett, new twists to fighting classic foes, and so on. The Honeybee Inn is another example, being completely revamped and looking spectacular, while the minigames like pull-ups are nicely expanded. Some fans may take umbrage with certain changes, but as a whole, this mix of old and new is pretty great most of the time. New scenes. Of course, it wouldn't be a remake without some entirely new sequences thrown in. Walking through the streets of Midgar and witnessing the aftermath of the Mako reactor bombing, venturing with Tifa through the slums and becoming better acquainted with its denizens, and so on. Not every new scene is a winner, particularly involving those that shall not be named, but there's way more good than bad here. Dislike. Level design. For all intents and purposes, exploring the slums and streets of Midgar is pretty fun. They're laden with details, characters, and look great. But many times in story missions, the level design devolves into corridors that feel way too linear and constricted. It's not like we're asking for expansive sandboxes or open world scenarios, but some side areas, alternate routes, or even interesting variety beyond squeeze through this opening would have been appreciated. Dislike. Side quest design. Unfortunately, much of Final Fantasy VII Remake's side quest design is pretty one note. Whether it's go here to find X thing or go here to kill X thing, one could debate how the majority of RPG side quests feel like this, but good writing and interesting twists on standard objectives can make them more fun. Both feel like they're in short supply here, with side quests devolving into errands or kill missions most of the time. The combat. There was skepticism initially over the decision to go with real-time combat while being able to bring up the command menu and slow things down considerably. Was this going to devolve into a hack-and-slash game, throwing away Final Fantasy's storied history of turn-based and ATB combat? Well, as it turns out, however, the combat is superb. There's plenty of depth in managing one's resources, switching between the different modes to inflict massive damage, and changing party members when the situation demands it. For as hectic as it can be in some encounters, the combat achieves that difficult task of being easy to hop into, yet tough to master. Like boss fights. The tough to master part is most obvious when facing bosses. Bosses have been significantly overhauled from the original game, offering different phases with unique mechanics and attacks to keep in mind. At first, it may seem like a hassle to try and stagger them while eating tons of damage and chugging potions for days. Slowly though, the pieces start to fall into place as you exploit weaknesses, quickly build up stagger, and switch between party members to unleash different abilities. Dislike. Padding. It was a given that Square Enix would try to fit as much as possible into the first part to make it worthwhile. To their credit, it mostly goes off without a hitch, but there are several instances that feel like straight up padding. Trying to reach Sector 5's reactor as you switch off certain devices to reroute power, taking extended walks through numerous sections feels like a drain. Some parts just go on way longer than they should, dragging the pacing down. Mixed. The ending. As a special note, we want to talk about the ending, but don't worry, there are no spoilers here. For the most part, the ending isn't something that can be classified as purely liked or disliked, whether you're a fan of the original game or not. Yes, many wish that it hadn't gone overboard compared to the original, and yes, there are also many who are interested in the new direction. But there are also those who are indifferent or just skeptical over what's next to come. It's definitely going to be worth discussing until part 2 rolls around. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.